TikTok was not a thing when you started teaching.
We didn't have emails, we didn't have texting, we didn't have YouTube.
And now, Winnie Sloan has over 120,000 TikTok followers. But she's not doing the latest TikTok dance. She's doing science. She's a high school biology teacher.
Large punnets. All of a sudden now, I had a platform not just to reach my students, but any student. Because I think we can agree that COVID exposed major inequities in many different things. And one of those is education, right? Not every kid has access to a computer. A lot of kids, though, do have access to a phone. I started teaching lessons in 60 seconds.
The response?
Comments was like, oh my gosh, thank you. I didn't get this till now. I'm like, oh, I'm making a difference. There were over 10 videos that got over 400,000 views. Great question. TikTok is a safe place because they know I'm not going to judge them. They can ask their question and I'll answer their question. I can't get to all of them, but I try.
Whether they're back in the classroom or still teaching virtually like Mrs. Sloan, teachers of TikTok across the country are educating and building community through the app.
Why has this time been particularly important for you to bring smiles to your kids?
It's been important, honestly, because we're in such a place of the unknown, like so many things, even other than the pandemic.
Marjorie McCowan is a middle school special education teacher.
I live in DC. A lot of stuff happened last week that had a major impact, not only on my students, but on their families. I even put out, a little video about my person, how I felt. Destroying the city like this. A lot of students did see it on TikTok and they were like, Ms. M, that's what are we supposed to do now? Like, they have questions, this is their backyard. They live here. Their parents work around there, or they work in there. And so it's just, I think it's just important with all the chaos, you got to find some lemonade. You got to find some smiles.
But for younger students or those with limited to no internet access, interacting with teachers over an app might not be realistic. In New York City, educators reverted to old school media to reach students in a new way.
It seemed like television could be an answer. Broadcast television.
This is Andrew Fletcher, New York City Department of Education's Senior Executive Director of Early Literacy.
We were particularly concerned about our youngest learners, ages 3 to 8, because they're not particularly suited for remote instruction. WNET tells us that over 99% of households in our New York City metropolitan area have access to their station just through good old-fashioned, regular, traditional TV.
Andrew spearheaded Let's Learn NYC, a partnership between the New York City Department of Education and WNET, the local public broadcasting station, to bring real teachers into students' homes, all from the comfort of their couches.
It was really just identifying educators who could do those segments, could do them from home, providing guidelines from the station on how best to produce those segments. We're talking about teachers with iPhones and iPads, filming themselves.
And it's not just New York City. School districts across the country, California, West Virginia, and Wisconsin, to name a few, are partnering with their local public broadcasting stations to supplement remote learning too. Whether it's through new or old media, teachers are stepping up to engage their students in innovative ways during this unprecedented time.
Just to provide this extra support and service to the children in the city and beyond.
I teach in DC, but I'm the world's teacher.
When I get back in the classroom, I'll be a better teacher because of this year, for sure.
On average, 10 people are testing positive for COVID-19 in Los Angeles County every minute, putting even more pressure on officials to vaccinate as many people as possible. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joining us now from St. Joseph Hospital in Burbank, California. Steve, about 1 in 5 people in Southern California are testing positive. What are you hearing from healthcare workers there who have just been struggling with this for months on end now?
Yeah, and Allison, you and I have been talking almost daily about it. I almost feel like I talk so much about the negative numbers and how bad this is that I hope it doesn't start to sound like white noise and people are fatigued by the reporting. But it is still bad. And talking to a nurse manager here at St. Joe's, as I just did, reminds me of why we do what we do and why they're doing what they're doing, because the numbers are still so overwhelming. They've been dealing with this on a sustained basis now for months and months and months. The nurse manager I just spoke to said he had 3 people die on a shift the other night, that there's patients are coding, which means they're running out of air, they can't breathe, or they're crashing or having a heart attack almost every day. It is daily that they're cycling people in. People then die and leave. They usually exit from death, and then as soon as those people die, there are new patients that are brought in. You mentioned the death rate, but it's also the case rate. It's about every minute in LA County, 10 people are getting infected. And if you take the percentage of that, which is about 10 to 12% of that number, those people are going to the hospital, and then another 1% of that number will die. So it gives you a sense of the overwhelming numbers that hospitals are facing. And this is at the beginning of what we're calling, or what health officials are describing as a post-holiday surge, meaning people that traveled for Christmas, gathered for New Year's. We are just starting to see the results of that. So I spoke to, again, that nursing manager. He, was very frank in what he was saying about how bad the crisis is. I want you to listen to him in his own words about what they're dealing with day in and day out. Listen to this.
The people on the front lines doing this work, I know that, I constantly hear, and you see all the signs, #heroes and all this stuff. I don't think any of us feel like heroes. We are just people doing our job. It's just that our job is really, really hard right now. We now have our 3rd morgue truck, and those are full because the funeral homes and the mortuaries, they don't have the space to offload these people. And so it's not just that the patients die alone, but they are themselves alone, waiting for even more. It's just heartbreaking.
A 3rd morgue truck brought in here because, as you heard, the death crisis is such that there is just simply no capacity at most funeral homes and mortuaries in the area as well. Some good news, if I may. I rarely get to do that, so I'll take the opportunity. Hospitalizations at this point have stabilized. They've been flat for the last couple of days, which is a significant sign that may say that things are waning, but health officials are still saying that surge, this post-holiday surge, while we're at the beginning, we haven't gotten to the part where when people get sick, they start to show symptoms bad enough to end up in the hospital. So we may possibly, and health officials are predicting, that we will see an uptick in hospitalizations in the next coming week or so. Allison?
Steve, that is incredible because, as you said, you have not had very much good news for us lately. Yeah. Let me ask you about vaccines. I understand California is opening up its vaccine eligibility to anyone 65 and older. Can you tell us about some of the challenges the state's been dealing with in terms of its rollout?
Well, the challenges are numerous, and you have to think about it like this. I mean, we focus so much on California because the numbers are so overwhelming, but part of that is because California is massive. I mean, it is the size of a good mid-sized country, not a small country. When you look at landmass, when you look at size, because of that, the vaccines that are coming in, there is no centralized way that they can store them or distribute them. So you have a case where fragmented health departments get fragmented batches of the vaccine, which makes it hard for an overall rollout in a state this size. That's what the governor spoke about. He spoke to my colleague, Miguel Almaguer. I want to play for you what he told Miguel in that interview. Listen to this.
Remember, California is a different state. We're the size of 21 states combined. And so when you talk about this state, the application is really localized. Localism is determinative. And so each locality, each municipality, each region will adopt strategies. And now with that flexibility, some will move more quickly than others. And within the next few weeks, we imagine all parts of the state will be moving consistently. If we just go fast and we say it's a free-for-all, then it's not orderly. And then you've got long lines, people 24 hours, 48 hours, people frustrated, angry.
So what the governor is hoping is the release valve are these super vaccine sites that they're opening. Dodger Stadium, Petco Park, Disneyland is now open and vaccinating people. They're hoping that will start to accelerate the rollout in some way just by having mass vaccinations throughout the state. We'll see. Allison?
Steve, I just have to tell you, we absolutely never tire of your reporting, but we have all said over and over again how tired we are for you. What a tough job you have covering such rough news day in and day out. Thank you. It's really important for our viewers, and we're so grateful that you hang with it. I know it's tough.
Thanks for that, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Throughout this pandemic, teachers have been putting themselves at risk to make sure our kids don't fall behind. In Utah, that risk is being recognized. Educators there are now able to get vaccinated for COVID-19. NBC News Now correspondent Dasha Burns is in Salt Lake City covering the story for NBC News' Teachers on the Frontline series.
Hey, Allison, it is a huge week for educators in Utah and here in Salt Lake County, which has the largest concentration of students and teachers in the state. And we were in this room when some of the very first shots in this county went into the arms of educators at the Murray City School District. And Allison, I have to tell you, the vibe in this room was just bursting with energy, an energy that the superintendent here told me she has not seen from teachers in a very long time. It has just been such a long haul for educators. Earlier this week, I watched a teacher teach 30 students online while teaching 20 students in the classroom. These folks have really been on the front line, so this means a whole lot to them. I want you to take a listen to some of what I heard.
I feel like it's the beginning of some freedom, so I can really get close to work with my kids.
You know, I've had kids come through the class that ended up being COVID positive, and we've taken mitigation measures to make sure that the virus isn't transmitted to other people. And it's not that I'm going to relax my policies, but it's a little bit easier for me, kind of just a little more relaxing to be able to go in front of the class, work with the kids, and not be so panicked about getting the virus.
I bragged to all my students, saying, guess what? I get to go get my COVID vaccine today. And they were all, really? Oh, that's so cool. So it's, I'm going to give them an update. I'm going to tell them it was super easy. As far as what it felt like a flu shot, and it almost didn't feel it. And if I can do it, I'm not the biggest fan of needles. If I can do it, anybody can do it, and I'm just super excited. I hope everybody will come and get a shot.
Thousands more teachers will get the vaccine today, tomorrow, continuing into next week. The word that I kept hearing from everyone that I've been talking to after they got their vaccine was relief. Relief that they finally have some protection. Relief that there is a light at the end of this long tunnel. Allison?
A year ago, many of us weren't yet paying attention to that mysterious virus in China. Now you can barely get through a conversation without COVID coming up. These days, most of us know at least several people who have gotten sick. Even worse, someone who's died. So how did we get to this point? Former acting CDC director Dr. Richard Besser gave NBC's Miguel Almaguer his take.
I think during the pandemic so far, CDC has not been allowed to properly serve the American people. It's not that the agency failed. It's that our political leaders did not allow this response to be led by public health. But never in our planning for a pandemic did we think there could be a scenario where our political leaders would abandon public health science and reject public health science and put forward messaging that flew in the face of public health science and what people could do to protect their health.
Dr. Besser joins me live now. We're so happy to see you, Dr. Besser. Let's expand on what you told Miguel. President-elect Biden will address the American people tonight. How can this incoming administration, how can the CDC regain trust and help us get a grip on this pandemic?
Yeah, Allison, it's great to be here. You know, regaining trust is really challenging. You know, what you want in a perfect scenario is to establish trust out of the gate and then do everything you can through communications, through transparency, through listening to maintain that trust. So, you know, Dr. Walensky coming in is going to have a big challenge ahead of her. I'm hoping that we see her standing next to political leaders, putting forward the public health messaging and seeing our political leaders nod and amplify what she's saying. Amplifying the message from the agency. I'm hoping we see her reestablish the firewall that has always existed between politics and science, so that CDC can do their work. Science is not always the final decider. They're political considerations, but what you need is a clarity and understanding, and people willing to say, well, here is what the science says, here's the policy decision we're making, and here's why. And over the past year, that has been so muddied that it has made it hard for health leaders and for the public to know, are these recommendations the best science? Is this the best thing I can do? Or is there something political going on here? And I'm really hoping that we will be turning the corner on that starting next week.
Dr. Besser, I have a viewer question for you about some CDC guidance that some of our viewers have found a little bit confusing. Prioritizing type 2 diabetics for the vaccine, but not type 1. I understand the American Diabetes Association sent a letter to the CDC pressuring the agency to change that guidance. Can you explain the CDC's thinking here?
Well, what I can explain is what I think will hopefully happen starting next week. Is a concern like that will be raised, and CDC will be out talking, sharing what they know, addressing the questions, a good question like this one, and providing the science and providing the rationale. And what I found during the days when I was the acting director and during the period when I served at CDC and wasn't the director was that hard questions allow the agency to do their job better and to challenge assumptions. And sometimes those hard questions pick up things that need to change, and sometimes they pick up things that need a better explanation. Clearly people with type 1 diabetes, that's a serious illness. And so an understanding of, well, what is the difference here? Why did CDC come down that way? Is it something they would consider? And then hopefully before long, there's going to be vaccine available for everyone who wants it, regardless of underlying medical condition.
Dr. Besser, Congressman Adriana Espaillat is the latest lawmaker to test positive for COVID after the attack in the Capitol last week. He already got his second COVID shot. Can you explain to our viewers how that can happen?
Yeah, so we know that you don't get full protection until after you've had both doses, and it's a couple weeks after your second dose. The other thing is that these vaccines are highly effective. But that isn't 100%. We're at about 95%. So it is still possible that someone who has been fully vaccinated could get this infection, but the risk is far reduced, and that's an incredible thing. It's another reason why even if you got the vaccine, you need to wear masks, you need to socially distance, and being in a tight quarters like so many people in Congress were last week during the insurgency. Is a risk factor. My congresswoman here in New Jersey, Bonnie Coleman Watson, she got COVID as well during that, and my thoughts are with her for a speedy recovery.
Dr. Besser, this brings me to just one last viewer question, and I think I know your answer to this, but I just want to be absolutely clear. A viewer asks, if you and all of your friends are vaccinated, does that mean you can hang out together without wearing masks?
No, I mean, it's a great question, but it's a big no for the same reason we were just talking about. You don't need to be a congressperson to get COVID. If you've been vaccinated, that's a terrific thing. It lowers your risk, but we still don't know whether people who've been vaccinated could spread this to someone else. We still don't know. You won't know 100%, even if you've gotten vaccinated, that you are fully protected. So no, until the public health recommendations come down and say we can put our masks away, until that comes down, and that's going to be a long time coming, please wear your masks, social distance, and wash your hands. It's really important.
Thank you so much for those important reminders, and thank you for coming back, Dr. Besser. We always love having you on News Now.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much, Allison.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.